Welcome back to the next session on Service Operations Management. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be understanding and dealing with the concept of service operations, innovations, and examples. The learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners will be able to understand what do we mean by service operations, innovations, and what are the various examples that have been associated with the service operations. What is the importance of service operations? And lastly, what are the various factors that have been affecting the applications of service operations in innovations and the various examples that have been associated with it? Now let's understand initially what do we mean by application in innovation and service operations. In a particular organization, when a business activity is being undertaken, there are various service level activities that have been undertaken for the short-term period or for the long-term period. These particular activities are sometimes related to the customers or sometimes not related to the customers. But in usually cases, the service that have been undertaken are usually undertaken with respect to effective and qualitative delivery to the customers. And hence, the customer interface, the distribution models, the novel applications plays a very important role when we identify and when we deliver a certain service to a customer. So on those particular basis, we need to identify and analyze about what service we are delivering, what innovations or new advancements in those particular services have been undertaken, and how we effectively deliver a service to the customer. The concept of service operations deal with about planning of those particular activities in a series or in particular way about how a particular service can be delivered to the customer. Service is a perceived value of a certain imagination in the minds of the customers about what they expect from an organization. That is, and the organization taking the various measures or steps for fulfilling of those particular activities and fulfilling the mindset of the expectation of the consumers are called as service operations. So that's the perspectives or the understanding level of applications and innovations and the service operations. Now let's understand what are the main processes that have been associated with service operations and what are the various 10 types of innovations that have been associated in terms of the business activities of the service innovations. Number one is first thing is the service itself. So we need to first identify the service that we are going to deal with and that we are going to offer to the consumers. So supporting an enhancement that surrounds your offering. So service is the major essential component on which basis we need to identify that what we are actually going to deliver to the customers and what are the various offerings that have been provided. So supporting an enhancement of those particular offerings is essentially important. And how do we deliver those things to the customers? The second thing is the channel. Channel is the channel of distribution that we are going to identify. So how your offerings are delivered to the customers and the users. So whatever product or services that we have, on what basis the services will be delivered to the customers and how it will be ultimately routed out for the customers for their better understanding and effective efficiency. So the channel is the channel of distribution. That is, if you want to deliver a certain service to our customers, then whether it will be a wholesaler, a manufacturer, a dealer, a retailer, and so on. So what are the various modes of distribution that have been identified? What will be the channel through which it will be passing from one level to another level, one recipient to another recipient, and so on. So offerings have been delivered from customer to users in what way and how it will be delivered is the perspectives of the channel. The third perspective is the brand. So the representation of your offerings and the businesses, that is, what is the brand value, what is the brand positioning and the brand image of your organization, and in what way the services have been undertaken by the business organization. So one of the major perspectives of the innovation is what is the brand value of a certain business. On the basis of the brand value, the customer will ultimately purchase your product and accordingly, he gets consistently associated with the product that we need to offer, that we need to purchase. So representation of the offerings and businesses is essentially important. And on those particular basis, the brand value of a certain product gets identified and gets valued. The next perspective is distinctive interactions you foster. So that's the concept of understanding how do we engage our customers. So engaging the customers is extremely important in order to see that the customer gets retained in the organization and they are not moving towards or they are not switching from one product to another product, one brand to another product, or one commodity to another commodity. So for those consideration, the service delivery must be very effective. It must be very continual. And accordingly, in order to engage to the customers, we must identify and see that how do we keep the customers engaged, and we must deliver or foster the better qualitative and effective service delivery to the customers. Now, these were the perspectives of the innovation wheel, which can be applied on the major component or the factors or the focuses of the experience, wherein the customer or the consumer can experience the service that has been delivered and what does he feel about those particular services. In case of the service operations, the second perspective is the configuration. So what is the configuration that can be used, and what are the various types of innovation that can be implemented about the innovations in terms of a configuration? That is, how do we need to change the technicalities and the features model of a particular product or a certain commodity in a business organization. The first concept is the profit models. On the basis of profit model, one needs to identify that what is the company actually aiming for, how you make your money, that is how the company wants to make its money, how the company wants to control its cost, what are the various factors for control of the costing, and what is the profit margin or the profit percentage the company is aiming for or the company is looking for. So that is the concept of understanding how do we make a money for a certain product, and in what way the money can be made for the business organization in the longer span of duration, whether the number of customer increases or whether the number of customer remains stable. What is the profit model, that is per percentage of profit or per margin of profit that is being earned behind a single product. The next perspective or the configuration of a factor that needs to be considered is the network. So connection with the others people to create the value. So what is the network that is being created? What connection or what connectivity do we have with the competitors, with the government, with the agencies, with the contractors, with the distributors, with the manufacturers, and so on. So what is the connection? What is the network? What is the spread, and what number of people are knowing about our product? So that is the concept of configuration. So if a particular in a scenario when the number of quantity demanded in a certain market increases, then how does the company cope up with and arrange for an additional product of additional manufacturing of a certain product and creates a value in the business organization is the examples of creation of a certain network. The fourth perspective is the structure that has been organized or that has been used in business organization. So structure is alignment of your talents and assets. So in this particular consideration, we need to identify that what is the talent that has been associated, where the talent does in the organization lie, and how do we utilize this particular talent for the effective, better utilization of resources. So identification of talent as to the either in the top level management, middle level management, or the low level management. The identification of structure is essentially important. And what structure do we have, whether it is a functional organization, whether we have a line and staff organization, and so on. So alignment of the talent and assets, and accordingly structuring of those particular assets and talent in the effective way for the long-term growth and business organization structure is essentially important. And from those particular basis, the configuration needs to be developed. The next perspective or the configuration is the processes. Process is the system that we are adopting for the superior method for doing your particular work. So what is the process that we are following? What are the various steps or the series of activity that are being planned or undertaken in a business organization? And how do we plan the service operations activity? That is the delivery of service to a particular consumer. So service innovations are the part of a consideration wherein based on the various technological advancements, based on the new tools and techniques which are available, we need to always implement those particular services, and accordingly, the innovation strategies needs to be understood and it needs to be undertaken in the business organization. The third perspective of the innovation wheel is the offering. So what we are offering and what we are delivering to the customers is ultimately playing a very important role in identifying and assessing what is the ultimately delivery to the consumers. Now, the first perspective in this particular consideration is the product performance. So the product performance plays an important role in identifying the distinguishing features and functionality of a certain product. That is, what is the performance of a certain product? What are the various good features or the brand association or the consideration and the characteristics of a certain product with which the customer will tend to purchase your product. In case of a certain product which is being of an highly technologized nature, if the product is very technologized, if the various new tools and techniques have been implemented, then accordingly the offering of a certain product, quality of a certain product is of a greater extent, and there are high chances of the customer gets very happy and satisfied and delighted about the product that has been delivered to him. The next consideration is the product system. So whatever system that we are implementing, that is the complementary products and services that have been implemented in the business organization. So offering to the customers plays in very important. So apart from a certain product that has been given to an consumer, what additional benefits or what additional services have been provided on those particular additional benefits or services, one comes to a certain conclusion or decision as to how those particular products can be undertaken in the long run or in the short run, and in what way those service delivery can be engaged in a very effective way. So that is the concept of offering. Now let us understand what are the various ideas of types that can be created in a business organization. The idea can be made of an incremental innovation, it can be of an disruptive innovation, or it can be of an architectural innovation. So the service idea that can be developed in business organization may be of an incremental, wherein you need to implement a certain advancements or a certain increments have been created for an existing level of innovation strategy that can be created, which may be added to the existing product line or existing system that is available in the organization. The disruptive innovation can be undertaken for changing the entire product life cycle or entire production activity that is being undertaken. And when you need to change a certain disruption or when you need to eliminate a certain activity, such type of activity or innovation strategy that has been implemented is called as a disruptive innovation. The third perspective or the ideas of types is architectural innovation. So in case of an architectural innovation, a new strategy, new tools and techniques have been designed, and on those particular basis, the architectural innovation is being implemented and it has been accepted in the business organization. So that is the concept of architectural innovation. Now let's take some examples of a service innovation. So the various examples of these service innovations are: number one, that is product use enhancement. So what are the various uses and what are the various benefits of the products and how it can enhance the business organization, and usage or life of the people can be streamlined or it can be assessed for. So that is the concept of understanding how we can create the better product enhancement, and in the short run as well as in the long run, how those various benefits can be provided to the individual customers. So that is the concept of identifying the product enhancement categories and features and how the product can help the people to create and avail a better product and better commodity in the short run, in the long run. The next perspective is maintenance of a certain plan. So accordingly, we must have a proper plan which is into existence, and those particular plans should be of a maintainable nature. That is, whenever it is been required or whenever there is a certain need that has been arise, the plan should be various maintainable, it should be affordable, it should be changeable, variable, and flexible to make various changes. So the service innovation takes into account about the maintenance of various plans as a part of an plan A, plan B, plan C. So if a plan A fails, plan B can be used. If the plan B fails, if the plan C can be used, and so on. So on those particular basis, the maintenance plan can be implemented and accepted in the business organizations. The third perspective is the concept of customer support. So effective and additional support from the customer is essentially required, and on those particular basis, we can take a better support from the customers, and accordingly, those business activities can be effectively implemented in the business organization. So effective use of the customer support is essentially required, and on those particular basis, when we have an effective support from the customers are giving a positive feedback. They are providing a certain feasible timeline as to its flexibility, as to its delivery, availability and purchase of those goods, services, and commodities. Then we can say that the service innovations have been implemented or they have been accepted in a very better consideration in the business organizations. The fourth perspective is information and education. So whatever information that we have related to our product, those particular information and education or the knowledge should be shared with the customers, and accordingly it should be shared within the participants of the organization. And hence, information and education sharing between the people or between the organization and outside the organization should always be undertaken for the improvement or better service delivery. The next perspective is the concept of warranty and the concept of guarantee, in which whatever product that we are purchasing or whatever service that we are delivering, for what specific time duration, what consideration it can be associated with us. If there is a certain breach of condition with respect to a certain product or a certain contract with certain goods and services, then accordingly, only the repairs of damages can be available, but the entire product is not been repaired. So that is the concept of warranty. And in case of a guarantee, if a particular person does not perform their promises respectively, then we can provide a certain security as to the third party, and accordingly, the third party can give an assurance as to this particular product or a particular service will be of a better qualitative nature, and it will be delivered as per the need requirement of a certain individuals. Now let us understand what are the various operational innovations that are applicable in the service innovations in a business organization. So various operational innovations are coming up with the entire new ways of fulfilling the orders. So a particular new ways of fulfilling the orders can be created, and on those particular ways, the operational innovation as to the new strategy can be implemented in the business organization. So the operational innovations as to how do we create a particular strategy, and in the long run as well in the short run, how those particular orders can be fulfilled for the better upliftment of the consumers or for the upliftment of the individual customers can be provided. So coming up with the new entire strategy can be a part of an acceptance. The second strategy that can be implemented, or the tools that can be organized, is developing a product. So here in this case, a new product can be developed, and accordingly, while developing a certain new product, we can come into a consideration as to taking up the various feedback suggestions from the various peoples, stakeholders, customers, employers, companies, business organizations, competitors, and so on. So accordingly, the new product can be developed, and the operational innovation activities in terms of service or the product delivery can be implemented for the better considerations. Providing the effective customer service. So effective and qualitative customer service is essentially important. And on those particular basis, we can come to a conclusion as to how various operational innovation activities can be implemented, and a better customer service can be provided in the short run as well as in the long run. So customer service plays an important role. Only when the customer is happy, he is satisfied with the product that we are delivering, he can only continue with the purchasing power of a certain product, and there will be a repeated purchase for the product that we are offering. So for those considerations, providing of the effective customer service is essentially important and necessary, and hence those activities can be initiated in the business organization. Doing any other activity that an enterprise performs. So apart from the doing of a regular activity, various other several activities can also be undertaken in a business organizations. And from those particular perspectives, the other activities can also be implemented in a business consideration. So doing activity apart from a regular activity can also be a part of a consideration, and hence those particular activities can be undertaken in the business organization in the regular day-to-day activity or apart from the regular other day-to-day activities. Now let's take an example of an service operations innovation as a part of an example. So the example of a configuration that can be either provided with respect to the wheel, the innovation wheel that can be applied is, number one, either with a profit model, either with a network model, either with a structure, or either with a processes. Now let's first understand what do we mean by a profit model. So in case of a profit model, the New York Times pivoted from its traditional ad-driven media model to the digital user subscription. So initially, the New York Times was available in form of a newspaper or a particular publication, which was available in a printed format. Then what happened? The company or the organization has moved from its traditional platform to an ad-driven digital media platform, that is a digital user subscriptions, in which the particular news or the particular New York Times is available on telephone, on TV, on mobile phones, on the various antennas, dish TVs, and so on. So accordingly, on the various digital platforms, that is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, the various network phones or the mobile phones on various desktop, ARM tops, and networks models, all those particular connections and devices are available, and the New York Times is available on those particular platforms. So the profit model of a certain company, it continues. That is, the business of the company does not change, and accordingly, the company is continuing its profit. Earlier, it was being generated from the traditional mode, that is an ad-driven media. Now they are using the profit or the revenue that is being generated for the company is from the various online media mode or the digital mode, through which various advertisements can be provided for the news headlines that can be provided. The second example of the network configuration of the innovation wheel is the Ford company. So Henry Ford was one of the first industrialists to control his entire supply chain, a strategy later called as a vertical integration. So in a particular scenario, in a particular consideration, what happened? Henry Ford was the first industrialist to control his entire supply chain, wherein the supply chain can be either implemented in form of an horizontal integration or a part of a vertical integration. So later, the company, what does it do? Initially, the supply chain strategy was being undertaken by the business organization in form of an only one company or one organization. But now, in a today's changing world or in a particular scenario, the company has increased its particular networks, and accordingly, a vertical integration strategy is being implemented, and accordingly, the company is providing its network services to all the platforms or all the participants who are in those particular processes. The next perspective is the structure. So on the basis of structure, we have an example of Google. So Google's 20% rule, which allowed employees to work on the side projects, led to the creation of Gmail and Google News. So apart from this, the Google gave a certain feasibility to its employees that 20% they can work apart from their regular work. So accordingly, 80% of work was done for the specifically for the Google, and 20% of work was been done for other activities, and which has led to a certain side project activity. And accordingly, it has led to a creation of Gmail and Google News. So accordingly, the structure of the organization should be always flexible, and it should be always of an variable nature, wherein as per the changes that have been required for the employees, the model should be very flexible and it should be adaptable to the employees who are working in the organization. And hence, flexibility or variability in the structure should be provided in the business organization. The next consideration or the example of configuration innovation is the processes. We have an example of McDonald's. McDonald's franchisees were encouraged to develop and launch their own new food items, leading to wins and such as McMuffins. So in this way, initially, McDonald's was only providing a certain few amounts of certain products or certain commodities, but accordingly, it has encouraged the people to provide certain new franchises, and accordingly, the new franchises has provided a certain idea, and the new product was being provided, that is Egg McMuffins was also being developed by the McDonald's, and accordingly, new product strategy was being created and innovation was being undertaken in terms of the service delivery. Now let's understand what are the various steps to improve the operational efficiency. So the various steps to improve the operational efficiency of a certain product are knowing the operation, that is what operational activities we are conducting, training, and again training. So what we need to do is we need to continuously train our people. We need to continuously to train our employees. We need to continuously train our management experts, strategists, business peoples, and so on. So when we train them again, their operational efficiency in a particular work is being increased, and accordingly, whatever activity that is being undertaken, it is very efficient and it is very qualitative. Putting the people first. So we should always put the people first in the first place, and accordingly, the employees, whether the people are the employees, they are the stakeholders, whether they are the customers, everyone should be given the first priority. And apart from the product, apart from the quality, apart from the technology, or apart from the operational activities, the first priority should be given to the people, and it should be always focused according to the people categories. Keeping an order fulfillment focus. So what we need to do is we must always have an order fulfillment focus in which delivering of a certain product on the specific timeline is essentially important, and it must be fulfilled or it must be complied by any organization which is conducting its business activities. So keeping an order fulfillment focus is essentially important in order to see that how do we conduct a certain activity in a very specific time period, and we fulfill those particular orders within a specific timeline or within a specific deadline. Improving the customer service. Ultimately, improving of the customer service is essentially important, and on this particular customer service can be only developed, it can be improvised only when we have the qualitative inputs that have been provided in the organization, and a proper set, organized and series of activities of the operational efficiency are available, which will help the organization to deliver a better and effective service in the short run as well as in the long run. Removing the various barriers to success. So whatever barriers that have been associated with the success of a certain factor, all those barriers must be removed, and from those particular perspectives, the barriers to the success must be minimized and it should be removed from the business organizations. Raising the bar. So always the bar as to the profitability, as to the sales, as to the quality, as to the quantity, everything should be raised, and accordingly, only then the operational efficiency of a business organization can be improved and the service innovations can be implemented in a better consideration in a business organizations. And lastly, reviewing the processes. Always whatever process activities as to knowing the operation, training, putting the people first, keeping an order, improving the customer, removing the barriers, raising the bars, it should be always reviewed. And if any changes are being required in these particular activities, the various changes needs to be implemented, and accordingly, various revisions in the plan, policies, and strategies needs to be undertaken time to time. Now let us understand how can service innovations be improved. So the service innovations can be improved with the help of establishing an online experience, offer a customer loyalty program, providing a customer success manager, redesigning your onboarding, adopting a new support channels, adding a chatbot to the websites, gamifying the pre and post purchase experiences, and looking for the opportunities to automate. So these are the various tools and techniques through which we can innovate a service experience, and accordingly, the service innovations can be improved, and the examples or the experiences of the customers can be improvised in a very better way and in a very effective way, which will help to deliver a better and effective service to the customers, and it will lead to their greater satisfaction of the customers or the consumers. Now let's understand why is service innovation so critical for firms. So service is very critical to the firm, because whenever we are ready to put our operational excellence plan into place, we need to consider the 5 best practices. So unless and until these particular 5 best practices have been implemented, we cannot come to a conclusion, or we cannot say that the service innovation in a particular organization or a particular firm is very effective and it is very important. The number one is choosing a methodology that matches your strategy. So we must always choose a strategy which is always beneficial and habitual along with the strategy that we are developing. Defining the goals. So what are the goals, plans, objectives of the business organization? All those business goals must be planned. It must be defined in very effective way. And on those particular basis, various actions needs to be initiated. Getting the employees on board as soon as possible. So we must always try to see that the employees in the organization are always engaged and they must come on board as soon as possible. So there should be no any leisure time or vacant time that is available for a certain employee, and they should be continuously put to work for the creation of innovations in the business organization. Communicate, communicate, and communicate. So there should be a proper and effective and healthy communication between the people, between the members, between the organization, between the participants who are there in the business organization. Remembering the operational excellence is a continuous nature. So we must always remember that there is a continuous requirement of an operational excellence, and this particular operational excellence should be implemented in regular or day-to-day business activities. Now let's understand what are the various activities that have been undertaken for building or developing the service operations or service excellences. So service innovations can be implemented with the help of various conceptual designs, detailing designs, and the implementation. In case of an conceptual designs, we have 3 steps. That is, number one is ideation, that is creation of a certain idea. Conceptual designing, that is creating a certain concept, and on those particular creation of certain concepts, how do we define and how do we create a certain concept? And lastly, prototyping. So we need to create a certain prototype, and that particular prototype should be implemented or should be created in a better organization. The next detailing design is having again the 3 steps, which involves experimenting, detailed designing, and piloting. So on those particular basis, we can have a detailed design, we can have a proper prototype, and on those particular basis, we can have a certain understanding about how it can be implemented. And lastly, the implementation phase has a certain activities of launching a certain idea or implementing a certain idea, and lastly, a reflection as to what are the various reviews and what are the feedbacks that we have observed or that we have seen on the basis of activities that was being implemented in the business organization. Now let us understand what the various steps to implement a service innovation. So the various steps for implementing a service innovations are implementation of a new technology, that is adoption of a new technology, mergers and acquisition, that is when we have a various merger and acquisitions of new firms, changes in the leadership. So if the top level management or the middle level management has a certain change in the leadership, then accordingly service innovations can be more better and effective. Change in the organization culture. So if the organization culture changes from open-ended to the closed-ended, line to the functional and so on. So accordingly, the change in the organization structure also helps to improvise the service innovation. And lastly, times of a certain crisis. So whenever we feel if there are certain crises that can be created in a business organization, then we must try to identify those particular crises, and a proper solution in a proper timeline should be provided and should be undertaken. So the service innovation is a very crucial consideration that one organization needs to undertake. And on the basis of services that we are delivering to a customer, we always must try to identify what additional and excellent services can be provided and how new services as a part of an innovation can be delivered to the customers. While service innovation can take place in a service sector, it does not necessarily be seen that service innovation can be applicable only in service sector, but it can be made applicable to all the services sectors also. Delivering the superior customer interaction is essentially important, but at the simultaneous level, we must always try to see that how do we effectively deliver a better qualitative service to the customers, and in what way that is in the long run, the benefit to the organization, benefit to the customers in the financial mode or non-financial mode is being created, and it helps the organization in the long run for the continuous improvement. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood what do we mean by service operations innovations, what are the various activities that have been performed under the service operations and innovations, and what are the various benefits and service operations and innovations. And simultaneously, we have also understood the various examples of service operations and innovations. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning in this particular session. We'll stay connected and we'll continue with our learning. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you.